hint of like my
No.
hand or my ass.
I just as I finished the season, I just paid attention since I saw that you were in it.
Yeah.
And just watched them. And then when he told me that you were in the sex box one, I did go back because there's a lot of shots in that where it's of the crew.
Yeah,
So I was like, oh, he might actually be in that.
Yeah.
So I went back and rewatched it. But like I said, you always see like half. He's like obscured by another person too.
Well, guys, this is the kind of insider industry banter.
This is the friendship simulator
that you can expect. Yeah, that too on the new incarnation of this show. We're pivoting again.
Yeah, well, 2020 is coming at us real fast, and we're trying to find product market fit. I believe that's what it's called.
Yeah. Maybe.
Well, it's all about finding brand and and letting your customers find
maybe
it.
to give us some closure. Colin, tell us about how we ended up with the Jellicle podcast, the cats, everything cats theme. The brand just didn't work out. Am I right?
Yeah, we kind of hit a wall, if you will. Not too many people out there looking for tickets to the Jellicle Ball. Not too many people with great memory, I guess. It was tricky.
But I think
sure.
what killed us was when 500 of our Jellicle listeners all attempted to ascend to the Heaviside layer at once.
Yeah.
And that hurt the brand. That hurt our brand.
That is difficult. But that is a nice segue into apocalyptic death cults.
Yes.
Into our new direction.
You've seen Talking Dead.
Yeah, probably a huge fan.
You've seen Behind the Thrones.
Yeah.
After Trek. What are some other ones?
After Shrek.
That's not real. This is what's new. This is what's hip. This is what people like. Meta content.
Yes.
Content
about the content.
Yeah. Just sort of picking through the details of your favorite, properties.
Yes.
Brands, personalities. So you don't have to be online or glued to that screen 24 hours a day.
We'll do that for you.
Yeah, we're pivoting to all new format. We are now exclusively devoted to following, commenting, curating the content of our friend at Radioheb, Summer Emerald, and our new show is called
The Reply Guys.
That's right. That's right. Summer, if you're listening, congratulations on your television debut.
Yeah, on Adult Swim.
Truth Point.
Truth
Point with Drill
and Derek.
If you haven't seen that, everybody, all our Radioheb fans out there,
go check that out.
Who first heard about Summer on our old podcast, Seattle Sucks. Check that out right now. We'll post a link to all of the Seattle-based Summer Emerald Reply guys who we inspired with that episode of ours, who are now breathing heavily into Summer's replies.
And DMs.
We want you to know we're here for it. We're with you. You're part of our nation.
Yeah. Well, I think there's nothing left to do but go ahead and get into our first episode, which will be a series of messages we left in our answering machine because she, I guess, wasn't available to pick up the phone.
Yeah. Oh, and Summer, I know you can hear this. So if you're wondering why Brian Abolish ICE at Brian_no-name has not replied or liked in the last 24 hours, it's because he is in Twitter jail. So I know you were worried about this. So yeah.
I know when your reply guys go silent, it gets a little worrisome.
Yeah. It's not a good feeling, you know. Okay, cool. 2020, we can do this, guys.
The year of the Reply Guys.
So deep, they really make me
Welcome back to Seattle Sucks, a podcast about hating the city we love.
Fool you.
But yeah, people should go check out Summer though.
Please
on
do
Truth
that.
Point. It's the Truth Point Disney episode, which I think was the last one that came out. So,
Yes, we will
yeah.
link to that, episode 10. We will link
Also,
to that.
Yeah.
Honest to God, like, all joking aside, one of the quickly becoming one of the great accounts on Twitter.
I think
Yeah.
she
no,
will
no,
be.
no shit. Actually, just gold, all day, constant fucking gold.
She will
Capital C
be
content.
the eponymous treasure in National Treasure 3, even though she is Canadian.
Get in
technically,
on the
so.
ground floor of this amazing Canadian.
It's a rocket
account.
ship. Nowhere to go but up. But if you're not following her already, go check her out on Instagram and Twitter at RABIOHEAB, and we'll link to that too. So
Yeah, in our episode
Yeah.
that she came on and did a really good interview
yeah, and go.
about apocalyptic death cults of the future.
Yes,
Yeah.
and she wrote a companion piece on Mechanical Freak, which we will also link to again, so you can read that.
Yeah, and unlike our usual situation, she's a guest whose life didn't get immediately worse after being on here, so always good to hear.
What are you trying to say, Brian? If you want to quit the podcast, just quit the podcast.
Speaking of life getting worse, I hear we're sending Greg away.
Yeah. Soon Greg will be chillin' in Cedar Rapids.
Okay, let's do a funny little experiment right now. I'm just going to
Oh, you're obsessed
type
with this.
in
Weather. You're going to do weather, aren't you?
Iowa.
Me and Colin already used
Weather.
up all the weather
Oh,
time last week.
4 degrees right now.
Wow.
How
That
nice.
sounds fantastic.
Yeah,
you
can't
will
wait.
be
You know
chilling
what?
in Cedar Rapids.
I've been thinking about this. Bernie. I've known about Bernie Sanders since, at least like the last century, maybe the very last minute of the last century, but still, like, it's been a long time. If you told me in, like, when I was a freshman in high school that someday I would be able to not only caucus for, which I've done once, but, like, actually possibly that Bernie Sanders might have a chance. That'd be like a joke. They'd be like, well, what's the best possible scenario for electoral politics in the 21st century? Well, I don't know, President Bernie Sanders. Setting aside for a moment that, like, it's a, world historic tragedy that he's really the only guy that is any good. And that it would be way better if there was, like, a much larger and more diverse cast of, like, left characters who could be, like, battling it out right now for a party's nomination. It's pretty good stuff. When we've talked about growing up in the end of history before, and talked a little bit about what that meant to me. I think at the end of the day, like, I've said before, like, I would have said, and this has meant very different things at different times, but I would have said, yeah, I'm a socialist ideologically since I was like 12 or something. But I was basically this 90s end of history brand of socialist, like a Star Trek socialist, where, like, for me, I was like, yeah, capitalism is bad, our government and empire are evil, but someday, long after I am dead, humanity will figure this out. Somebody will write this, like, this will get figured out, and then so yeah, in the meantime you can, like, go, like, well, I guess, like, let's just whatever's better than this, and so that's why I think I've been very pessimistic, as you have, Brian, I know, about Bernie's chances here. Like, it seems like an fucking impossible task to win for him to get the nomination of the Democratic Party. We've said again, and man, it started happening this week, that the second it starts looking good for him, the reaction that will come out of the fucking woodwork is going to be shit you can't even imagine, and that's not going to stop. But it is looking like there's a path somehow. I think the fact that, Joe Biden is actually looking like his polls are going down finally, not up, matters. I think the dust up with Iran, where our government tried to provoke fucking World War III.
And only one candidate
Yeah,
had the right
and
opinion.
this drew an incredibly bright, bold line in the sand. And between him and everyone else, between Bernie and everyone else, and particularly a fucking target on Biden's back, like that's huge. So now there's this path, and that path is really strong and really easy to see if Bernie wins the Iowa caucus. There is that, not that it's a sure thing, but like there's a path that is visible that I can see if he comes out and does it in Iowa, because if he can win Iowa, and now it's looking like he's either neck and neck or up there, and we still got 2 weeks left, and I'm going to be there for 2 weeks. So, hey, but then he's going to probably take New Hampshire with momentum like that. You could get Nevada going in and do well in South Carolina going into Super Tuesday. I mean, this is a real thing where he could rack up so much early on that Biden and Warren just look like jokes. I mean, imagine an Iowa caucus where Bernie Sanders comes out on top, followed in second by Pete Buttigieg. I mean, that to me, like, I'm like, that's a good shot that Bernie has at least a primary electoral path to the nomination. Okay, now, of course, who knows what the crazy shit the Democrats will come up with. But what I'm saying is, if I see that happen on election night, on caucus night, if that results comes in, I think I can finally walk out into a snowy cornfield and die.
Yeah. Well, and that was a wonderful long way around the bush or whatever to say that you were into Bernie before it was cool. But yeah, I mean, like, literally, you know, for
I was.
Yeah, for people who aren't Maoists out there, this is probably literally your last chance before the world burns alive to vote for anybody remotely left of center in America. So, you know, maybe you should take advantage of it. And Greg's going to be out there whipping the Cats Weberhead demographic in Iowa, which I hear is quite high.
Yeah.
And, you know, they'll be dancing to the caucus.
Under the Jellicle moon.
The Jellicle moon.
Yeah.
I'm just going to tell everybody that the Jellicle Ball is at, like, a school down the street from where they live on Monday, February 3rd, and we'll see what happens.
Just going to terrify everybody in the caucus into voting for him.
Now, if I'm not mistaken, Iowa is the birthplace of Captain Kirk. Is that correct?
I believe so.
That is
Is
true,
this an elaborate ruse for you to go visit the birthplace of Captain Kirk?
You know, I think now that you mention it, I think there is, like,
some deep-seated psychological drive.
I think there's, like,
a
somewhere
need, a base instinct.
Somewhere there's a roadside, like, model
There
of
has
the
to
Enterprise
be.
and,
There
like, a
has to
plaque
be. Yeah,
that
there
says,
has
like,
to be.
birthplace of Captain Kirk.
You don't pass that up.
Zero chance that
Yeah,
it's
yeah.
I know,
yeah,
I
there's
think
a
I've seen
statue
pictures
of him
yeah,
or
okay.
something.
I hadn't thought of this, but I'm adding it to the itinerary. I'm going to find
Please
that
do.
place and go there.
And please take a photo.
Yeah.
But if you're not sure what the hell we're talking about, we're raising money to send Greg to Iowa, which we have already raised more than our initial goal. And we're continuing to raise for little Greg to go see Captain Kirk's birthplace, and also hopefully to send some other folks down there
help
or
out
elsewhere.
Some other, at least, maybe it's right now. It looks like with what we've got, like, I can get there and get back and have a place to stay. More is either going to help. Maybe send some more people to New Hampshire or something next time around. Maybe if it's looking good by the end as we're coming up on it, maybe it's bringing some more people out for. But there are other people there are a ton of people, even people we just know. I'm just realized, like, a ton of people from Seattle who are going out there, who I know. I was just on a call with a bunch of people today. and some of them are getting help here and there, but a lot of them are ultimately paying their own way in various ways. And so there's a lot of opportunity for our podcast to sponsor through your donations the goings on out there. So
Yeah, and there's some people, at least on Twitter, are definitely just winging it and going out there. And I know there's just kind of like rolling funds to try and keep volunteers from sleeping on the park bench in 4-degree weather.
yeah.
So, the extra money all goes to that. And hopefully getting one Bernard Sanders through the Iowa primary. Now, the thing to keep in mind here is everybody knows that this last week was literally the worst week on Twitter since probably the last time it was the worst week on Twitter. Imagine if one Bernard Sanders wins in Iowa, how awful Twitter is going to be. And you should applaud that. You should want it and hope that it happens. Twitter will become the suicide booth from Futurama. And that is good. That is a good thing.
Yeah, this is like the death drive.
Yeah. We want Twitter to be the chaosphere. We don't want it to be a good place to be. We want it to be Cube from the fucking movie. We want it to be the prison from Cube.
Also Canadian.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, yeah. So,
Yeah.
So we have 20 donors so far, and we wanted to thank them in order of their donation. Audrey O'Neill, Max Wagner, Aaron O'Kay, Justin Roll, Carl Nelson, Brendan Mack, The Beacon Cinema, Jason Amon, Roy Zuniga, Jerry Shepard, Wes Sales, Gabe the Cat, Chrissy Coots, Doomed Planet Podcast, David Clark, Deborah Shotwell, Madeline Hanhart, and 3 anonymous donors. Thank you so much.
Yeah, so some of those people, so Max is my buddy from Young Democrats in college.
Mm-hmm.
We went to Texas in 2008 for the Firehouse primary there, and in Colorado for the general, I think, for some reason. And also he just reminded me today that he went to Iowa 4 years ago.
There you go.
For Hillary Clinton. This is before I'd gotten to him.
Yeah.
Okay.
Nice guy.
Yeah.
So he's on board for the revolution now. So he's coming out. He's gonna come out there.
Awesome.
So thank you for your donation, Mac. Also, some of the people on that list who donated are also going to be out there, mostly paying out of their own pocket for a lot of things. Roy, Justin, Carl.
How much Slipknot do you think you're going to listen to while you're down there?
I mean, how
Are you
much
gonna take
Slipknot
in-
is there?
I think there's a lot.
Like, I'll
So-
make sure to put it on my phone.
So while Greg's in Iowa, he's also going to be, corresponding with the show back here.
Yes.
Maybe getting us some interviews. Hopefully one with Slipknot. Fingers crossed.
Yep.
But yeah, so look forward to that in the next couple of weeks. Greg calling in the sound of the helicopter as he's just flying over the cornfields. As it Flight of the Bumblebee or whatever playing in the background.
Flight of the Corn Cob.
All right. Well, on the topic of campaigns, we had some recent movement in the city council. In fact, this might have been the first bit of legislation passed in 2020, which was campaign finance reform.
I think it's really like the first new council thing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Let me hit the air horn. Oh, fuck, we got to get that soundboard fixed. That was the child's bicycle and clown nose.
I think that was appropriate. So if you haven't been following this story, which we've actually been talking about for some time, because this was threatened several months ago during the general election here for city council.
Yeah, if you haven't been following it, you have not been a diligent listener.
That's
and you
true.
need to do better.
Yeah.
That's what you come to the show for, is us to tell you to do better.
Yes, do better and give us your money. So what this attempts to do is limit or preclude the ability from corporations with some percentage of foreign backing to donate money in political campaigns here in Seattle, because this was a municipal ordinance.
Yeah, does it have a name?
It does have a name. It's the Clean Campaigns Act.
Cool. Sounds good. Sounds great. I love it. Let's clean those campaigns.
Well, it has all the markings of progressive legislation, and that it is like, the imagery of cleaning the city up, plus it is put out against the Asian. To bout the yellow menace. So it works in the progressive era. No problems there. Very excited to hear how it works now.
Cool, yeah. Bringing back Yellow Peril.
Yeah.
To dovetail nicely with Russiagate Panic.
Yeah.
Yeah, and the organization that was involved in helping Councilmember Gonzalez write this legislation has been involved in Russiagate-related legislation and political action, it looked like, from their website. This is freespeechforpeople.org. So again, this is something we've been very skeptical about from the beginning, skeptical that it will even possibly be upheld, found to be a legal restriction on campaign finance, skeptical because it's just probably meaningless on its face. Okay, so specifically, the measure puts the city in the vanguard of local efforts to control corporate political spending. It blocks any corporation from giving money to candidates or to independent political action committees if the corporation has one non-American investor holding at least 1% ownership or multiple non-American investors holding at least 5%.
Okay, that's from an AP story about it. So that's kind of what we... So, yeah, so basically this comes out of the last election, the big, Amazon money bomb, which we talked a lot about, and how it was bad. We obviously, money in elections is a massive problem in this country. It was in this last election here. I guess in that spirit, you can't totally... this isn't, totally malicious, but I think we have some skepticisms that are worth talking about here.
Yeah, I mean, first off, money out of elections into podcasts. I think we all agree on that.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, I think starting with the sort of foreign ownership thing is... I get they're using it as a loophole to attack a large company like Amazon.
Well, that's the problem.
But it does beg the question of the, okay, so if Amazon was 100% American, would its billions of dollars be any better in the system, right?
Well, yeah. So that's the basic problem. I think what we said when we first started hearing about this, what I said was there's no, how do you restrict campaign finance in America after Citizens United, which is now 10 years old?
Yeah.
And it very clearly, that decision says you can't restrict speech for any reason, including that of corporations, and so that was made pretty clear. It's a new Supreme Court. Now we have Brett Kavanaugh, so who knows?
And Gorsuch. Don't
could
forget
go
Gorsuch.
anyway. Yeah, exactly.
Well, and the purpose of this, so the purpose of this isn't to pass a bill and be all right, this is in effect.
Yeah.
It's essentially going to get challenged immediately. It's going to go to court. And the idea is to try and poke a hole in Citizens United via this.
Which could, that also could be a noble thing in its way to say, okay, let's find a way to challenge Citizens United. But what this does is, so let's think for a minute. First of all, no one has made this challenge yet in the Supreme Court, got legislation through, then had it challenged in court and gone to the Supreme Court over the last 10 years on this idea. That should tell you that, Citizens United was on everybody's radar, every organization, everybody. This isn't some new thing that, or some hidden thing that some activists are trying to draw attention to. Everybody knows. That's the first reason to be skeptical here. The second is, apparently, so we find out, what are they gonna do to try and fix, challenge Amazon's ability to put money into our elections, etc. It's on this idea of foreign ownership of this, and let's set aside for the fact, first of all, whether that could be effective in court, in the Supreme Court, and ask what that would really mean practically. Let's say it did work. Let's say it was never challenged and it was just let to be the law here in Seattle,
Mm-hmm.
or it went to the Supreme Court and was upheld. I mean, what have we really done here? Like, what we've done is, on this very serious issue of talking about corporate money in campaigns, which is a big deal. It's disgusting that they're able to just dump all this fucking money in there. But what you're saying is, like you're saying, oh, it's bad because they're foreign.
Yeah.
Which has two problems with it. First of all, you distract from the real problem that they're massive corporations with tons of capital that they can use to undemocratically fucking fuck with our elections, which has nothing to do with the fact that they're fucking foreign owned. Secondly, you're relying on this whole like nativist nationalist perspective, which kind of feels, I mean, it's very of the moment right now in like liberal America. It's very much, we were joking about Yellow Peril because it just has that ring to it, but it's very much on like the wavelength of Russiagate. And so it sucks. I mean, it's just bad.
It's a right-wing frame that you're starting from, which is that the problem with this is its foreignness. And, this happened immediately after the 2016 election where there were all these people saying, Donald Trump was elected by like Russian oligarchs, or Russian oligarchs going to call the shots. And, I used to always challenge people to tell me that. I'd be like, well, how's that any different than American oligarchs? I mean, from a regular person who lives here, like a working class person, how is it any different to have Russian oligarchs tell you what to do than American oligarchs?
Yeah.
It's equally bad, right? Who cares? Like at that point,
not to
right?
mention
Like,
the
who gives
fact
a
that
shit,
the whole thing's fucking nuts
made up
and like bullshit. And right, the problem is rich people have power in our society, and therefore it's not democratic. And one small manifestation of that is campaign contributions during elections.
Yeah.
And but we're not even that small thing, which is actually relatively small in how power is distributed in our capitalist shithole society. The actual checks being written for either two campaigns or an independent expenditure. These corporations have this power. This is just one way they wield it, and you're not even trying to take that away from them here.
Right.
All you're trying to do is
narrowing the scope.
And what possible so we read a statistic somewhere earlier. We haven't said this yet, but I guess it is Amazon. In fact, does have 5% foreign ownership. I'm actually astounded that it's that low. That doesn't even make sense to me.
I think it's literally just because Jeff was a Wall Street guy, so I think he just was able to get so much money from Wall Street.
Yeah,
but
that
like,
makes sense.
but like a total accident that it's that low. Probably.
Yeah, that's amazing. But but there's even if this was upheld, this power is not going to be constrained by whatever regulation this is. And they're going to find
just make a new company.
Owned
by
fucking
American.
The fucking this redounds to the offense. Okay, under capital, in the class war, you cannot build a wall. Okay, like the technology of class warfare, any innovation redounds to the offensive. Okay, like they have the fucking money. They're gonna use it in all kinds of ways. Now you might temporarily in the next cycle be able to get some headlines like, look, Amazon can't write this big check like they did last time. But you know what? That money is going to find other ways to get other places. It doesn't fucking matter. And we're not even talking about the rest of their actual political effect on our democracy of their massive wealth and power, which, again, mostly is not writing checks in local fucking political campaigns, which was basically a symbolic fuck you and really means nothing to their ability to strong arm fucking the entire fucking country at a municipal level.
Yeah, and a couple of things. I mean, Mexico at one point had a law that in order for a foreign company to operate in Mexico, it had to have 51% Mexican ownership, right? And what American companies would do is you would just find some stooge or group of stooges, you would give them 51% control, and they were just puppets that you told what to do, and the money still all flowed one direction, right? So, I mean, one that shows the weakness of this kind of legislation. That was much
Well,
stronger
it's a
legislation than
technocratic
we have. But
fix.
yeah,
It does not address actual
the
power.
actual power, right? And the other thing is that this idea that there's this narrow solution that can be found that just centers around campaign finances and political action committees. I mean, one, political action committees were created to get around previous campaign finance legislation, so why you would think they wouldn't just create another method to get around it. But the other thing to consider is, in this most recent Democratic sort of kerfuffle between Bernie and Warren, not to hurt our Warren heads out there, but she's not campaigning in New Hampshire, guys. She's given up, all right? And that whole knives out and planting stories about Bernie and stuff, that was a calculated move to preserve her future and the future of her staff, right? The future of her staff in the sense that they went knives out against Bernie, so they'll always have a future, in the Democratic Party, funded by all the, healthcare industry in Wall Street. And she'll have a future, right? And, if her and Biden go down in flames, as a president VP sort of combo in 2020, she'll get a very nice job in the private sector for, stabbing Bernie in the back and, kicking him down the stairs. And, that you have to remember that is always part of their calculation. I mean, Obama's calculation for never doing anything about Wall Street in 2008 was that he knew there was going to be a big pile of money waiting for him when he got out of the White House. And sure enough, he's an incredibly rich man now. And anybody who watched that, right, is saying, oh, if I do what the corporations want, even if they're not actively giving me money now, they will give me money in the future, right? That's the power of holding and hoarding wealth.
That's
that's
another
one way.
One avenue of power.
One
yes.
way, yeah.
Another
Yeah.
on a long list.
Yeah, because you control everything, people have to do things to appease you if they, want to live lives of dignity or whatever, or even good lives, right? And that, power can't be curtailed by a silly law that they'll just easily go right around.
Now, okay, so I think we've dispatched with that pretty thoroughly. But now let's go to what is actually going to happen. So there's nothing wrong, because of the way our very undemocratic, our oligarchic imperial overlords, run this country. We have this, awful panel of decrepit psychotics who basically wield enormous power that you have to, trick into doing the right thing occasionally. And this is one way you do it. You pass legislation that's going to challenge existing laws and rulings and argue it in front of the Supreme Court. That seems to be the goal here. That's what this organization you were saying, that's sort of
freespeechforpeople.org.
So again, I'm skeptical that there's going to be any juice to this squeeze, because it's 10 years no one has come up with this thing.
Well, and you also have to keep in mind, the idea that corporations have a First Amendment right to donate to campaigns goes back all the way to 1978.
Yeah.
So it's not even 10 years. I mean, we've had decades
and
now
it's
to go through
yes.
this.
And it's already an absurd thing. Well, you got to understand, if the power that behind the Supreme Court is willing to use the Supreme Court, if our capitalist society is willing to use the Supreme Court to say that in our supposedly democratic society that corporations have the same rights to speech as people, it's not like these companies all haven't been multinationals again since the 70s. This isn't some new thing. This is not some new fucking thing no one's thought of before, okay? I'm not a constitutional lawyer, and we don't have one on the show today, but I'm going to guess that if this had any chance of doing fucking anything, even on a sympathetic fucking court, it would have gone.
Yeah.
So someone would have done this already, because in the decision, the Kennedy decision, Citizens United, it's pretty plain. It's just it doesn't identify the what the corporations. It doesn't make any list. It just says the government cannot restrict.
Yeah.
Okay, that's the thing. The government cannot step in. It can't make. It says a bunch of stuff in his decision and the supporting decisions from Scalia about the government cannot come in and decide, and maybe some of the stuff I remember is from the previous cases like Austin or whatever. But It's the government can't decide what is like a corrupting influence, what is all these things. There's a shit. It's all about what the government can't do. Okay, this was just basically what the Bill of Rights is mostly about. Read at least one way. There's not any room in there to interpret this that way. So this would be dubious to get this narrow, the government can restrict speech based on it not being of American origin, which again is already fucking tenuous. If you're just saying like 5% of ownership is foreign owned, I mean, that's very tenuous. But we're not talking about the fucking Warren Court here, okay? We're not talking about some like...
This is the most conservative Supreme Court we've had since the early 1930s.
Yeah.
So, I mean, like, the chances of this getting past them is essentially zero.
Which, again, we can't dismiss it just based on that because, again, that could be a totally legitimate, possibly noble political tactic.
Yeah.
Here's why I don't like it. Because if that's the case, if we know that there is no fucking way, this probably doesn't even go to the Supreme Court. It's going to get knocked down by a lower court.
Yeah.
And the Supreme Court's going to not hear it.
Right.
Okay. It's what I would bet
would be the most likely
would happen.
thing. Yeah.
It'll get knocked down on the basis of Citizens United in some lower court, and it will never go to the Supreme Court. Okay, that makes headlines. Next cycle, this case will probably still be in court next election cycle, and it'll be when Amazon tries or does try to put in money. Hey, maybe they won't. Maybe combined with the bad press from this last cycle, combine that with the fact that there's this pending case going through the courts that would make it illegal, or unsure what that would mean years maybe there will be injunctions even if someone's really crafty that will be enforced in the next cycle. You're going to make that's going to be a victory lap for people, even if it's just in the news. It's either a victory lap for people next cycle like Gonzalez, or it's a stalking horse to ride, to talk about this, to show we're fighting for this. Again, that sounds good. Make this the story again, make fighting for it. If you're gonna do that, why not do something better than this foreign influence bullshit, this fucking nativist shit? Just fucking pass a bill that says that has some, even though since we know it's not gonna get through, pass a bill that says something that has some other better interpretation of the Constitution, that there are arguments out there for why Citizens United could be illegal, okay?
Sure.
These arguments exist. Pass something on that basis that doesn't rely on this nativist Russiagate shit, and then use that hey, let that not go to the Supreme Court. Let that fucking scare people off for one cycle with possible injunctions. Make hay out of that. And get launch your bid for your next office, for use that, do something better. But the choice of this just seems very
what I think the sort of problem with it is that there is good reason to take things to court even if you're going to lose.
Absolutely,
right? So,
absolutely.
The Communist Party stuck up for the Centralia massacre defendants for decades, right? And we're taking that to court over and over and over again, knowing good and well that they were going to lose those cases, right? When they defended the Scottsboro boys, they had no illusions that those guys were going to hang, and they were definitely going to lose that case. But what they were doing was, instead of just going to court and being oh, we did the process, they were building political movements around it. So it wasn't just about going to court. It's hey, we're going to use this court case to explain this thing that's happening and get people out in the streets and angry about it. But what are you going to do here?
You're going to
have a big America First rally?
Yeah, you're going to have this big
street?
rally that instead of when the next cycle comes around, or when this is in the courts, when it's in the news, you're going to have a big rally not saying we need to take away the power of capital. We need to kneecap these fucking corporations. We need to get them out of our democratic process in every way, you're going to say, these corporations have 5% foreign ownership.
Yeah.
And,
we must remove the threat of the Hun from our national shores.
What the fuck,
Yeah,
man?
I mean, it literally is Make America Great Again. I mean, honestly, this is like Donald Trump ran on, too, is that, like, too many jobs being offshore, too many foreign companies coming in here. We have to have American, like, manufacturing, stuff like that. I mean, it's just the same nativist horse shit that always gets, shoveled around here. But
there is a case to be made. There is a movement to be built. There is a distinction to be made. There is a contradiction to be highlighted here about our democratic process and the power of capital in it. And this last cycle, really showed that in the case of that Amazon money dump. Like, that was a very easily highlighted thing. People made a lot of the wrong fucking cases about it, but but this is just extremely confused, considering there's no fucking way it's actually going to be upheld.
Yeah, and I mean, the thing is that, again, like in the case of the Scottsboro boys, like, it wasn't like going down there, they were like, oh, we're definitely going to convince Alabama to not lynch a bunch of black people, right? Nobody had that illusion, right? But the idea was like, we're going to force, by taking this case and taking the most extreme position, which is these people are definitely innocent, should be let free right now, which would have been the most extreme position in Alabama at the time, right? They knew they weren't going to win that, but they were going to force everybody to look at what was happening, right? And to actually have to
do it in the light of
what
day,
was going on, right? Yeah, and they were going to make them, instead of, allowing them to have it be an Alabama thing, it was going to have to be a national thing, right? And the thing is, you could do that. Like, fuck it. Why not make the bill no corporation could donate to anything ever? Also, no rich people should have any voting rights. And then actually force people, because then the courts are inherently reactionary, so you're not going to win anything through the court system. So what you do is you do that, and you force people then to consider the fact, just as they were doing in Alabama, consider the fact for a second that maybe black people are getting fucked in Alabama and getting killed, right? And they aren't guilty, right? And they're innocent, right? Make people consider for a fact that, like, this money in politics isn't a foreign influence thing. It's not a, like, petty bribery thing. It is the inherent flaw in our system, right? That you can't have democracy and inequality at the same time.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
You force people to have that conversation, right? That's what you use those court cases
just to be clear, I think we wouldn't be having this negative a reaction to it if it was no corporations can give money in any way in these campaigns, even if it didn't include the no rich people can vote provision. That would be better. We would take a moderate position like that would get our seal of approval.
I think the accepting of the right wing nativist frame is a poison pill.
Well, it's this fucking like liberal instinct for triangulation that's like, what's the way I can get the fucking right wingers on my side too? Yeah,
it's that, and it's like it's like dumb like loopholism too.
Because that's what Russiagate is
we'll
about.
We'll find a simple loophole. And
that is what Russiagate is about.
Yeah.
It's about these fucking like baby-brained liberals who were like, well, the right in America and the MAGA chud genus, with their particular skull shape. Is really susceptible to nativist, nationalist arguments about foreign influence. So I'm going to accept that frame and judge their candidate against that. And that is how you, A, lose, and B, reveal that you have either no principles or that you are actually just a reactionary. And here, I mean, that's all that we're really doing here. It's the same thing.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. And I mean, and to carry that historical analogy a little bit further, post Scottsboro and stuff like that, going into the early 1940s when Earl Browder, here's for the real heads out there, when Earl Browder took over the CPUSA, he launched this new motto, which was that communism is actually just 20th century Americanism. And they went hard on this, like, look, we don't got to talk about Lenin and Marx. We got Lincoln and Roosevelt, right? Yeah. And they leaned on this America First thing. They stopped organizing black people in the South, and shit fell apart real quick. And, you can't, this idea that you're going to outwit the right by accepting their frame or something like that and convincing the chuds is it always gets tried because it's it's the liberal move, but it never fucking works. It always blows up in your face because by accepting their frame, you cede the entire conversation to them.
Absolutely.
Right? Because I'm sure that like if this was like if it started to pick up steam in the courts, the right would probably be happy to pick it up and be like, yeah, fuck yeah, dude, no foreign influence, all foreigners got to get out, right?
Yeah.
And it would just be turned into this like horrifying, opposite.
But I don't think that is what's going to happen. It's just
Oh no,
gonna
of course
be,
not. It's just gonna die in court.
It's just going to be die in court.
Yeah.
But the part that will really suck is when Gonzalez and whoever else chooses to uses it to make hay, but in this very confused way that doesn't really address anything real and does rely on this nativist jingoist shit.
Especially here in the West Coast, because the hay is going to be like, I tried to keep Chinese money out of, Washington politics. It's just going to be one of those things of like, oh, cool, Washington's never played this game before. This should go really well. But yeah, I mean, what are you going to say when you're trying to make hay about it? Like, I tried to keep the nefarious Russian bear off our coast.
Even if the Yellow Peril Russiagate thing isn't played too much, doesn't come across too much, you're still talking about it in a way that completely ignores the actual problem, which is the money itself.
Yeah.
Which most of which is American and whatever.
Yeah, you're just gonna slide directly into a nativism argument that has nothing to do with money or financing or anything like that.
Ignore the real problem,
Oh yeah, of course. Yeah, and and it's that question that again nobody wants to bring up, and people carefully avoided even during the Amazon debates during the election, which is that is democracy really even possible when you have these levels of inequality? And
no,
nobody really wants to talk about it because the answer is obviously no. You don't have to think about it for a second.
To be the most charitable about this, it's possible some people involved, maybe Gonzalez herself, are thinking, aha.
Yeah.
This is how we get Amazon out.
Yeah.
And I'm sorry, that's just simple.
Yeah.
That's just simple-minded.
Well,
again,
I think that's
this isn't where their power really resides in our democracy. So even if you got them for a cycle or two to not give money, you have done nothing to their power in our society or even our city. And also, that's probably not even that's not going to happen.
Well, it's Democratic Party loopholeism bullshit, which it never fucking works because A, nobody cares, and B, it doesn't actually attack the power that you're looking at, right? And I mean, the closest sort of right-wing comparison was when Obama got elected, and they were all like, "Aha!" But he's not from here, And it's like, A, that's stupid, and B, nobody gives a shit. Nobody cares. Some fucking dumb loophole. Nobody gives a shit. Loophole shit. People watch too much TV, and they see
fucking lawyer shows, West Wing.
Yeah, and it always reminds me of
aha.
Yeah, and I know I said that I only remembered one thing from Good Will Hunting, but now I remember a second one. In the very beginning, you learn that he's a genius because he gets arrested for some dumb thing like fighting or something, and he's like, and the judge is like, you got arrested for stealing a car, but you cited horse and buggy statutes from 1880 or something, so they let you off. It's like, no, that's not how the law works.
No.
You can say that dumb shit all you want. Nobody's gonna fucking listen to you. There's no magic spell that you can cast that gets you. These are all relationships of power, and you can't cast it away by saying the right words.
By being fucking clever.
Yeah, the power is going to act on you in the ways that it wants to act on you. Right?
This implies that you are in the liberal imagination. You say the magic words or you answer the riddle and the wizard lets you pass, right? Because there's this thing, there's institutions and process and this thing that you can appeal to that is just and unbiased, and that's just not true because that wizard is controlled by the money.
Yeah.
Everything's controlled by the money. There's nothing you can appeal to that doesn't have the money's hand up its ass.
Yeah, and the big thing, too, is you have to understand that people have interests, right? And they're not going to believe you just because you might be technically correct. And the thing
and this is fucking extremely subjective at best. You're making a big new case here that I mean, for this to be enacted into law in that it creates a loophole. If for the Supreme Court to rule with a decision that creates a new layer to the jurisprudence of Citizens United, a new stipulation on how to interpret Citizens United, they have to come up with an entire new special interpretation of corporations and how they work in the law, and identify all this bullshit that they're not gonna do.
Yeah, of course not.
Not even if they wanted to. It's the level of shit that they're gonna say, well, Congress needs to pass a law to identify this shit.
No court's gonna want to take that swing at
No,
it.
it's too big. Too big, way too specific. This is the kind of shit. Again, if you were just striking it down based on some this isn't applying to here's the problem here. This doesn't apply to any constitutional interpretation specifically, right? You're asking like the Supreme Court to make like this isn't appealing.
You're asking them to interpret who the Constitution applies to, which has never gone well. Like, it's always been like, oh, you are right, black people aren't human. Like, it's never been like a good move.
Well, this isn't some independent thing, some law that's like challenging some other law passed by Congress on the basis of the Constitution. This is a new argument against some Supreme Court jurisprudence.
Yeah.
And it's the same fucking even more conservative Supreme Court. So again,
it's
you
crazy.
should just go all the way. Always go all the way. That's the lesson here.
Yep.
That's the lesson from the Obama years. That's the lesson from 2016. That's the lesson right now. Don't fucking waste your time with this triangulated like technicality
the idea
wizard spell bullshit.
Yeah, the idea
just
they're going to get there
push all the way.
Yeah, the idea that you think you can get anywhere through incrementalism doesn't work, because you're never going to convince anybody that things are bad a little at a time, because that ends up just being you're basically always going to fall into like right-wing frames. And the other part of it too is that like
also who cares?
Yeah,
if it's a
nobody
small
cares.
problem, if it's just small technical problem, can you imagine making the fucking case?
Yeah.
This is a huge deal. We have got to get the money out of politics from companies that have at least 5% foreign ownership.
People already
people,
asleep. They already
what
fall
the
asleep. They
fuck?
already don't care. They're already gone.
Because what that says is, oh, this obviously isn't a real problem.
Yeah.
If it was a real problem, you'd be talking about something like you need to get all money out of politics for A, Y, Z, everything.
Well, then you have to have a long conversation with them about how, like, Amazon has like 5%. It's a whole. You're getting in the weeds about something you don't need to get in the weeds about. It's a much simpler conversation to have with somebody to say, like, hey, rich people use their money to influence politics, and that's bad for you. That is a simple one-sentence thing that, by the way, pretty much everybody's going to agree with you on, because everybody understands that on a basic level, and then it's just going to be the details about they're going to be feel helpless after that, so it's going to be the details of what to do about it. But this, I mean, anybody who thinks this kind of like incrementalism works, I mean, just think about all those times that you went up during the Bush years to some like crazy evangelical, and you were like, you believe A? Well, in the Bible on page whatever, it says B.
It's exactly the same thing.
And think of how well that worked, which is not once, ever.
Right.
Like, think of how they laughed in your fucking face and didn't give a shit.
Well, and think about this. As this country slides into the third world, a deindustrialized, like, hollow shell, imagine the editorials in the Seattle Times decrying our discouraging foreign investment in the city of Seattle.
Oh, or just and the big thing too is all you have to do is think back to the 1980s when there was a yellow peril panic over Japanese investment into the United States. In fact, go watch. I don't think they showed it actually. The Beacon showed this movie, and go watch it when they show it. The Prayer of the Roller Boys, which, by the way, is all about how California is being sold off to Japan, and there is a gang of roller skating teens who are a white nationalist gang, which was cut out of the TV version I watched as a kid all the time, but are a white nationalist gang who are explicitly there to, who exist in this sort of milieu of America First horse shit, right? And it's like, like we can have a foreign yellow peril kind of panic, right? We've done it plenty of times. We certainly did it in the 80s, and we certainly did it in the 1880s. Like, let's not speed up that recurring cycle. But yeah, I mean, it's a bad move. The foreigners are bad frame is awful, and you shouldn't accept it.
I don't know. And hey, maybe we're being too critical. Maybe it's just a cute little thing for them to pass because it's the first
We're doing
thing.
something.
They're like, we're gonna do this, but again, like I'm against that shit. I hate this. Is this is Alex Peterson bringing his shovel to the council chambers. It's the same shit.
It's progressive era shit, which is I'm sweeping the dais to show you that we're cleaning up the city.
Yeah,
and I'm gonna warn you about again the Chinese or whatever.
Yeah,
it's
even if it never. I'm saying like even if it never comes up again, like we never hear about it again.
Yeah.
It's just like a nice little thing they're doing. Again, if you're gonna do that. Do it.
Yeah, if it's a waste of time that's not going to melt anything,
I think
bigger.
we're talking in circles at this point.
Yeah.
I think we get it.
Sorry that we've been yelling at you, Colin. Colin right now looks like the son in the middle of a divorce.
Yeah, it's just been like, whoa.
Yeah.
Mommy and Daddy, please stop agreeing.
Some judge is about to walk up to him and be like, all right, you have to decide who you're going to live with.
And I just flip a coin. Well, we have a new patron that we should thank before we wrap this whole thing up. Jungle Clams, thank you for your support.
Jungle Clams.
Hell yeah.
I think
I don't know who that is, but cool. Thank you.
I think this might have been a former patron under a new name, but if I'm wrong or if I'm right, thank you for coming back to the fold.
Yeah.
And I think that's it. Remember, we have a GoFundMe. We will put a link to that, but it is gofundme.com/send-Greg-away, and we will link to that. So
send me away to die in a frozen cornfield.
Yes.
Yeah, that's the goal. Also, remember, we'll put a link as well to go check out Summer Emerald's thing on Truth Point and to follow her at Radio Heb, which is like Radiohead.
Radiohead.
Yeah.
Did I say radio?
The D's are B's. Yeah.
Yeah, we'll learn to talk eventually.
Well, there will be links. So please do that, and thanks as always for listening. Okay. Bye.